We'll call the regular meeting in the Renewal Economic Development Authority for Tuesday, October 9th, 2018 at 8 a.m. to order. First item on the agenda is roll call. We do have a quorum, so we'll go on to item number 2, approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll offer a motion to approve those.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Any discussion on any? See none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 3 from the EDA staff regarding administrative activities during the month of September 2018. Heather?
All right, good morning. You have all the reports before you. I won't go through all of them, but I'll just touch on a few highlights. On the Section 8 program, note that we had submitted an application for additional set-aside funding under Category 2B portability back in June. We were notified recently that HUD approved our application, and we were awarded an additional $22,000 for the current funding year. On the public housing report, I'll just note that we did get another update on the operating fund lawsuit. Back in April, the federal government filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit. Cones and Lyons, which is the law firm working on behalf of housing authorities, filed in opposition to the government's motion. And now it's in the hands of the judge, and we're just awaiting a decision, and we have no way of knowing when that might come in. It could be 6 months or more even. So I'll update you as soon as we hear anything on that. Note under the property rehabilitation loan program, we had 2 loans that have been pending for several months. Those have now been approved. Each loan was in the amount of $25,000. And on the Garden Terrace report, I'll just note that we did go out for RFPs for concept plans for the landscaping improvements at Garden Terrace. I got some phone calls from some landscaping companies, so they were looking into it, but they didn't submit anything by the deadline. So I would recommend maybe just putting that on hold for now, bringing it back in early spring for 2019 potential
Just too
project.
busy, you think?
Hmm?
Just too busy, you think?
Well, I think partly they didn't really know what we wanted, and I just said we were just asking them for their recommendations and to put a concept plan together, but we didn't have, actual specs for them to bid on, so I don't know if it was then a time issue for them to, sit and figure out that. Maybe I didn't give them enough time, I don't know, but at this point in the year, I would just recommend bringing it back in the spring, February, March, for a summer project next year, because nothing will get done at this point with winter coming, so.
But is it something that we could actually let them work on over the winter months? If they would, look at it now, they got all winter to come up with a plan and design stuff, rather than in spring, say we want it now right away again.
Problem with that
Everybody
is a
else
lot of
wants
times
something.
their bid is only good for 30 days, I don't know with that kind of thing if prices fluctuate a lot with plants. I don't know if they know what their costs will be for their.
Well, we could give them a longer deadline, I guess is what I'm really saying, is let them
Oh,
start
sure.
working on it now and come in April with a cost. Put a longer deadline out there.
I could do that if you want me just to send them out right away and have them do, maybe March 1st or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, they could look at it, see what it looks like, got all winter.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, let's review the format before we send it out.
Other than that, were there any questions on any of the reports?
Anybody have any questions for Heather?
I'll offer a motion to approve the administrative report.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4A, receive a public housing assessment system score for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018. Heather?
All right, as you can see on the report, we are scored typically on an annual basis from HUD on our Public Housing Assessment System, or FAS. What they're looking at is our physical condition of our buildings, our financial Management, management would be vacancy rates, things like that. And then our capital fund program. Through the assessment process, they identify housing authorities that are experiencing difficulties, and then they focus their resources on those projects. We received a FOS score for our fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018 of 96%, which puts us at a high performer rating, which is where we want to be. Anything 90% and above is a high performer.
Great. Anybody have any questions? Heather?
I'll offer a motion receiving the Public Housing Assessment System score for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2018.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4B, consider awarding a bid to the Family Unit Gutter Project. Heather?
Right, this project was approved last month. We solicited bids from 3 vendors, and 3 bids were received. You can see those listed there. And Southern Minnesota Custom Gutters and Guards out of New Ulm here was the low bidder at $5,435.50. We did estimate this project to cost between $5,000 to $10,000, so we came in at the lower end of that estimate. And we intend to use capital fund grants to pay for the project.
Thank you.
I'll offer the motion to award the bid to the Southern Minnesota Custom Gutters and Guards for the project.
I'll second that.
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 4C, consider motion authorizing payment of the public housing program claims. Heather?
I
Anything out of the
don't
ordinary?
have anything to point out on that.
I'll move it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5A, consider motion approving the request from the Citizens Bank to subordinate an economic development authority loan to a new bank mortgage for the property at 317 North Minnesota Street.
So this was the EDA rehab loan that you approved last month, and there was the current balance of $2,348 on their current loan, which I included in the outstanding loan balance, but I later found out that we had to subordinate that loan. So if you look at the numbers, they still have enough equity in the building to cover the subordination, us being in the second position for the loan. The balance is $2,348, and they're making about $230 a month payment, so that should be paid off fairly soon. And we have subordinated loans in the past.
I'll offer the motion to approve the request for the subordinate agreement between EDA and Citizens Bank.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5B, consider membership renewal with the Greater Minnesota Partnership.
This is about the, I believe it's the 3rd or 4th year we've been a member of this organization. As the information states, if we don't have a voice in St. Paul, we fall behind from those that do have a voice. And this is closely connected to the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities, which speaks for all outstate members. And this particular organization is tied to economic development and housing and those particular areas that they're focused on.
I'll move it.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 5C, consider approval of the 2018 audited annual financial report. Nicole?
Good morning. So this is just the quick review of the financials that we had audited for the end of June 30th, 2018 for the fiscal year. I'll go through it real quick. I know it's a lot of numbers. If you have any questions as we go, let me know. I'll do my best to answer them. And then you did all get a copy of the report. If you don't need the hard copy, please leave that, or if you want the electronic copy, let me know and I'll get that to you. We have been printing less and less of the hard copies, so the more we can hold on to for public inspection, the better we are. Okay, so overall, it was a good year. There was some large transactions, as you can see, that impacted the net position. So overall, the total net position dropped over $400,000, but that was due in large part to the payment of assessments and then the forgiveness of that TIF loan, the interfund TIF loan. So that really had a huge impact on the net position. Cash and investments are still up almost $600,000. And then the operating revenue, which is the rents and the operating grants from HUD, was down, but that was offset by a decrease in the housing assistance payments, so the expenses also decreased. Then this is just another view of the net position comparing the last few years. As you can see, even with the large decrease in 2018 in the net position, we're still up over $400,000 over the last 5 years. So the net position is good, and it really shows that we have a strong financial position right now. The decrease in the assets is due in large part to the forgiveness of that loan. So of course that got rid of that receivable. And then the other transactions, the land sales, home sales, and the large payments were also large transactions during the year, but they affected the inventory and the receivables. They were affected, they were offset by transfers in and other things. So the overall decrease was only at like $189,000. This just breaks down the net position, lets you know by category. That one doesn't show up right. By category where the net position sits, or what part of the EDA that holds that. So the governmental has 1.3% or 1.3 million of that net position. The largest category down here is the market value housing, which is Garden Terrace, and that's the 44%. I'm not sure where all those values went. This smaller one, the 0.2%, is the Section 8, and it actually shows a $13,000 net position this year, which is the first time they've had a positive net position since 2014, when those para reporting requirements went into effect. So I apologize for that slide. It looked good on my screen. And this just shows the revenues over time. As you can see, they've been increasing or staying the same. This year's, of course, had the land sale in Milford Heights. And then there was a $60,000 increase in the capital grants from HUD. So the revenues increased. And then within the expenses, you can see the expenses also present themselves as increasing by quite a bit, but that's due to that loan forgiveness and those assessment payoffs. And as I stated before, the net position is still strong, so it didn't have a huge impact on us overall. The next few slides will just break down the different sections of the EDA, and I'll go through them real quick. And within the governmental activities, of course, the large transactions were the land sale in Milford Heights and the transfers from Garden Terrace that came in to help cover those payments and the loan forgiveness. So the net position within the governmental funds only decreased by $189,000, even though expenses were up that $1.1 million and revenues were up. They're still up to $900,000. Then public and Indian housing, which is Broadway House, of course. The revenues increased by $70,000. That was mostly due to capital grants. The expenses increased by just over $9,000, and that was just some miscellaneous overall spread across all the miscellaneous expense accounts. So their net position went down $65,000 this year. Within Section 8, which is that housing vouchers, of course, the operating grants affected the revenue, caused a decrease of about $35,000. Expenses also went down by more, so the net position actually increased within the Section 8 by about 15,000. And then the market rate housing, which I said is Garden Terrace, the revenues increased about $26,000, and that was due mostly in part to interest into the rent. And the expenses increased $500,000, but that was due to that transfer to the EDA to help cover those assessment payments. And then, so the net position overall within Garden Terrace went down $171,000. And then looking at the rental property, this is a very small portion of the EDA. The revenues were up $500, expenses down $1,400, and the net position increased by $4,500. The total revenue within the rental property within a year is $9,200, so it's not a huge part of the EDA. And then looking at capital assets, there was no activity within the assets, so the only effect on it, or the change, was the annual depreciation, which was about $153,000. Overall, the auditors issued us an unmodified opinion, which is good. There was no instances of noncompliance, material or immaterial, and there was no deficiencies found in the internal controls. I know in prior years we had issues maybe with the pledged securities, the collateral to cover our balances, and we put things in place and have been able to watch that and kept that to be a non-factor this year. So, since the audit, they have filed the REAC report, the real estate assessments, to the Real Estate Assessment Center. They've gotten a preliminary report and submitted some of the changes that were requested. And as far as I know, that's progressing the way it's supposed to. And that is all I have. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you. Any questions?
you.
Heather?
Do we have,
Not Heather, but
we still have
go.
some outstanding potential future liabilities with the assessments?
Yes.
And
They are fairly, I thought I put that in here, but I lost that one. They're fairly small. It's just on those remaining lots. We've paid off on everything that we have sold.
sure. So going forward, those are going to be.
Yeah, as the lots sell, we would pay those off. We were waiting to make sure that they didn't go to TIF qualified
sure.
buyers before we paid them.
Any more questions, concerns?
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I would entertain a motion to approve it.
I will offer the motion.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item 6A, consider approval of the 2019 Guarantor Budget. Heather?
I guess the main thing here is the proposed rent increases for 2019. We are proposing a moderate inflation adjustment on the rents, and we are kind of looking at that by the square footage of the unit. So you can see the smaller units are proposing a smaller increase, and then as the units grow in size, the increase grows a little bit accordingly. The biggest increase would be the $25 a month increase to the two-bedroom den units. The one-bedrooms, we're proposing a $5 increase. So depending on where you're at, $5 to $25 increase in rent for the upcoming year. Otherwise, everything else is fairly status quo, staff increases and that sort of thing, so.
Should the two categories be dated different?
Yes.
2017, 2018?
Yes, you are correct. That should be 2018 and 2019. Yes,
Alright.
I missed that, sorry.
Heather, do you know these proposed rents, how they factor into existing market rents in the community?
Yeah, Chris and I looked at that. We did a comparison with the other market rate buildings in town, and we feel we are in line with market rate rents, which is where we want to be. We might still be a little bit low, but our buildings are 20, 25 years old, and theirs are newer. So we take all that into account.
I like seeing reductions in categories, but I see a lot of reductions for 2019 from 2018. And can you walk us through some of those? Parking rentals, then you go down to utilities, and there's like a $7,000 reduction in gas.
See what we're looking at here.
And I'm assuming that's maybe that new furnaces coming in? Is that maybe why that's down so low? Unless I'm reading it wrong.
Which, I'm trying to look at what you're looking at.
The
The actual budget.
Terrace Apartments 1, gas going from 55,000 down to 48.
You would have looked at the existing consumption to forecast for 2019.
Typically, they look at the
And if they were
first
higher,
6 months.
they would have reduced it, just to match the current rates.
The
You know, if the budget was 55,000, but we're only using 40,000, there's no need to have another $55,000.
There was maybe the new
Budget.
furnace too, was maybe some of it, or,
Well, even if you look at the actual for 17, that was only 31,000, so,
Right.
yeah, the budgeted amount was probably a little aggressive.
And I think we go, we look at the utilities based on what the PUC is projecting, and they're not always on spot, and gas has really stayed low. In anticipation of gas going up, we might have increased it, but it really hasn't.
we've been pretty aggressive in a lot of maintenance work this year. Do we have any major maintenance work coming next year for Garden Terrace? Well, we talked about the windows, but we haven't made any decisions with that yet. That would be
Possibly the windows.
huge.
Yeah, I'm having trouble getting that estimate back.
I mean, that potentially could be a couple $100,000, potentially.
Could be the landscaping project. Trying to think, we took care of a lot of things this year, so.
Yeah, I mean, we really have.
Other than that, I can't think of anything major.
Not hearing any, I'm going to go ahead and approve the 2019 Garden Terrace budget.
Well, second?
We got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Item number 7, from the Economic Development Director, Assistant City Manager regarding activities during the month of September 2018. Chris?
So just some of the highlights, met with Todd Prafke, the city manager of St. Peters, to talk about childcare programs that they had put together in their city and how effective they were. And based on the conversations, I can start putting together, writing some programs that I'll bring before the board in the next, beginning of the year, end of the year area. Still working with Windings. We got their MIF contract back, and there's some language in there that may or may not prevent them from accepting the money. So they're contacting Deed this week to see if they can remove the language or change the language to make it more agreeable in the terms of the contract. So I should know by the end of the week if they're going to move forward with that or not. A developer had come to town, and Dan and I met with Todd Mayhoff and looked at potential sites in the city for him to develop. He was looking at the EDA sites right next to Broadway House, so he's going to put together a proposal, and we'll bring that before you to see if you accept or reject it. And then he was also looking at the lot in front of Garden Terrace as well. Applied for a Brownfield Award for the City Center apartment projects. Brownfield is a remediation of contaminated soils and grounds. Brian and I felt that was a good project to put forward for this award because they turned basically a vacant parking lot and some houses, demoed those, cleaned up the area, and put a really good project in its place. So I should hear back from them in about 3 weeks or so if they've won. And then working on the revolving loan for Windings as well, and that'll go before council next week.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Chris?
No? I got one little item before you close close up.
Okay.
I want to go back to,
Make a motion on this one
oh,
first.
yeah, sorry.
I'll make a motion to receive the report from the.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. No more discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Go ahead.
Back to 4A, I think we just skipped over that really quickly, but you don't need to scroll back, but, you know, we had a score of 96%, and I think we approved that, and that's a pretty big deal, and I think we should certainly compliment Heather and her staff for getting that score, and that's a lot of work, and day-to-day, year-round, and so please take that back to your staff, and a compliment to you that for getting that score and the hard work that you do all year long, so from the EDA staff to you, our congratulations on that score. So I want to just make sure we don't gloss over that so quickly. So, thank you.
You set the bar really high for next year, huh?
I'm always shooting for 100, so I'm disappointed in a 96.
There you
but
go.
Thank you.
What did they nitpick on that score? I should have asked.
It looked like facilities and
It
out.
was
Yeah, it
the
was facilities,
physical
but-
assessment,
Yeah.
and we only get that every 3 years, so that 36 out of 40 is going to stay until we have our next physical assessment. If I recall, we appealed something and got some points back because we would have been, we would have received a low enough score that would have put us at, not troubled, but maybe standard, which we've never gotten. And so we appealed that, got those points back, and that got us back into the high performer
Was that
range.
last year then that they actually did the
think it-
inspection?
Yeah, I
or-
believe so.
Yeah, and I remember you discussing some of the things were
It
pretty
had to do with
trivial.
the sprinkler. There was a paint fleck on a
Yeah.
sprinkler head,
Yeah.
and that failed our
That's right.
entire sprinkler system,
Yeah.
which lost us big points. We had a sprinkler inspector come out, inspect it, and put a written report together that it didn't affect the function of the sprinkler system, so we were able to get those points back, which was a huge relief because we've always been a high performer, and I would have been so disappointed if we didn't get that score. So,
Anyway, good job. Thank you.
All right. No more business? Meeting adjourned.
There you go.